So the structure of the session is like this. So first of all, welcome address and brief note about the subject will be shared by Dr. Vatsal Patel, who is President GICA. Followed by that, we will have a speaker's introduction for all three speakers. Then we will have presentation by each speakers, which will be for about 20 minutes in this sequence. At first, we'll have Mr. Kirti Shah, followed by Disha Pujara, and then we have Dr. Rutul Joshi. And then we will have a question answer session. So during interaction, while any of the speakers are addressing, if you have any questions, you can place it in a chat box and we'll pick up questions from there. And at the end of question answer session, vote of thanks will be delivered by Mr. Apurva Thakurshi. So now I hand over to Dr. Vatsal Patel for his welcome address.
Thank you, Yash, for a nice start. I welcome you all from different organizations as well as my fraternity friends. GICA, as you all know, but some of you are first time attending this type of webinar. So I should give some small brief introduction about the GICA. GICA is now 74 years old organization, and more than 64 architects and engineers are the members of this GICA. GICA's main activity is the knowledge sharing, and lots of technical programs organized by the GICA, and it will enhance the knowledge of architects and engineers. We always try to share the knowledge of different for the different subjects also. So all engineering as well as sometimes architects with planning sectors also we consider as a important topics for our webinars. This webinar session started by my past president Kirti Patel, and he was so enthusiastic and very young dynamic president we have at that time. Last year we have 13 such webinars of GICA and of about 6 to 7 webinars of social security schemes. So with continuing that legacy of KC Patel, this time this will be the first webinar in which we are talking about the talking about the parking scenario of the urban cities. Let me tell you how it will come into the mind to make such type of webinars. See, before approximate 1 month, we received a notification from the municipal corporation that they are making the Ahmedabad parking policy, and they are inviting objections and suggestions from the different people of the Ahmedabad as well as who wants to give their objections or suggestions. And when I flip it out the policy, and I found that lots of things is required to be clarified and lots of things is required for the brainstorming. So I contacted few of the people who is really interested for such type of policies, and I personally discussed with them and make one presentation to the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, and we already submitted our suggestions, because we never say that they were our objections. See, in the policy we never create objections for any things. So we like to give our constructive suggestions for the parking policy, and yesterday we submitted our constructive parking policy suggestions to the AMC. So we decided to give a big platform for discussing such policies. And fortunately, the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, particularly Deputy Municipal Commissioner Mr. Solanki, who is IAS officer, and he is the Deputy Municipal Commissioner of Estate Department. He was ready to attend this webinar, as well as my ex-colleague and my good friend Ramesh Desai, who is the estate officer of Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. He also agrees with his staff to join this webinar as a knowledge sharing. Unfortunately, just before starting this webinar, Solanki Sahib called me, and because of some social problem at their place, his uncle is expired before few hours. So he is not able to join this webinar. But let us start the first webinar of GICA with positive note that this type of webinar will give our inputs to the authority for better Ahmedabad, lovable and livable Ahmedabad. Thank you. Over to Yash Majitia for the introduction of our speakers, today's speakers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your welcome address on this note. Now, I will introduce all the three speakers. We'll start with Shri Kirti Shah. So, Shri Kirti Shah had studied architecture at School of Architecture at CEPT University, and currently he is a practicing architect and chairman of KSA Design Planning Services Private Limited. And besides being founder trustee, he is also ASAG's director. ASAG stands for Ahmedabad Study Action Group, which is a non-government and non-commercial organization run by concerned professionals committed to utilize the skill for public cause in general and the poor and the disadvantaged sections of the society. He has also been members of various other committees for organizations like HUDCO, National Housing Finance Corporation Limited of South Africa. And moreover, he also has worked as a consultant on for various authorities like Gujarat Rural Housing Agency, UNICEF, Government of Bhutan, and many such agencies. Now, talking about Dr. Rutul Joshi, he has studied diploma in architecture and MURP from CEPT University, followed by MA and PhD from University of West of England, Bristol. And currently he teaches urban planning as an associate professor and is head of doctoral programs at CEPT University. His doctoral research focused on conceptualizing the poverty mobility linkages for Indian cities. Apart from the core urban planning components, he teaches urban history at the UG and PG level and urban theories in the PhD program. He is involved in research issues relating to land use, transport, integration, sustainable mobility, parking policies in Indian cities. He has also published various research articles and book chapters in addition to working on research projects. And Dr. Rutul Joshi also writes occasionally in the newspaper and media on urban mobility and civic issues. And now talking about our third speaker for the evening, Ms. Disha Pujara Majitia. She has done Masters in Urban and Regional Planning from CEPT University after completing Bachelor of Planning and Diploma of Architecture. She has also undertaken a certification course on housing and policy and planning from IIT Roorkee. She is currently working as a senior executive in corporate planning department at Gujarat Metro Rail Corporation since 2017. She is associated with various aspects of planning and design of Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar Metro and Surat Metro projects. Her key involvement is in the land acquisition process and conceptual land use plans for property development around metro station areas. And she's also a doodle artist and makes doodles in her free time. So with this, I've introduced all the three speakers, and now we will request Shri Kirti Shah to start with his presentation first. So in case anyone have any questions, you can put it in chat box. And Kirti, so the session, your time would be about 20 minutes to address the audience.
Hello, can you open my screen?
Yes, so you will be able to, you will be able to share from your side.
Yeah, it's just a minute. Just a minute. Ankisha, just a second.
Yes, sir.
Will you open?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me start. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Let me first start by thanking the Gujarat Institute of Civil Engineer and Architects for this very interesting initiative, organizing a webinar on parking challenges and opportunities in metro cities. It's obviously very timely, considering that Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation has prepared a draft policy and is seeking responses and suggestions and comments from citizens. So this is very timely. I must also thank Vatsal Bhai Patel for this opportunity to come and participate. And I must also thank Bakul Bhai Desai because, but for him, he's the one who sent me this policy. I didn't know about it. And he suggested that I write, and I wrote a very long response to this policy. So thank you very much. I must also use this opportunity to can you see me also? Yeah. Narendra Bhai Desai is Bakul Bhai's father, who was the municipal commissioner, and I think deputy commissioner, and also town planner at Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation. Was someone was like my guru, and I think I learned a lot from him. Anytime I had a question, I would go to him, and he would provide data, he'll provide information. He was one who essentially had Ahmedabad city on his fingertips, so it was wonderful. I also must say that some of my early learning in terms of public speaking, I have learned from Gujarat Institute. They used to kind of organize, I think, my lectures, and I have learned speaking in that platform also. I'm personally very happy with this particular webinar, and I'll talk about the webinars that we are organizing. But what is good about this webinar is there are just 3 speakers, which really means that everyone has lots of time to speak. It also doesn't have a moderator in the sense that I think no one essentially intervenes and asks difficult questions. And I was very impressed with the time. At 8:30 in the evening, everyone is parvari gacho, and then I think we essentially a good time. Now I have about 20 minutes to make a presentation, and my biggest advantage is this: that even though we are talking about parking policy, I have 2 very distinguished and scholarly people behind me, Rutul Bhai and Dishaji, who are going to kind of talk behind me. And therefore, if I really mess up something, I'm sure they would cover it up. Coming to, I think, my presentation, I think, let me, even though it's just 20 minutes, I'm essentially have my presentation in 4 parts. One is this, that, and I really call it context presentation. The reason is this, that, kind of audience that we have today, very, very studious, and I think, brilliant engineers and architects, who are the member of this organization. They, instead of just talking about, parking policy, that too from the bus city, I thought we will provide them a context, about urbanization, what urban challenge is like in this country, what is happening, what is needed to be done. So that's a one part. Wouldn't take a lot of time, but I will just talk about that. Second thing is this, I'm going to share very quickly mobility issues, contextually, in the sense that we had an opportunity to organize several webinars, and some of the findings that came out, I'm going to share about that. I will also very quickly mention something about public transport we have been working on, and then of course Ahmedabad city. And then, if there is time available, I may come back on the parking policy. As I said, I have made a long presentation to the municipal corporation, and but that depends on how much time we have. And if I do not have time, what we can do is this: that after Nishaji and Rutul Bhai has spoken, I could come back and to kind of fill in gap if there are any. So that is the context. Can we start rolling out now, Ankisha? Hello. Just a minute. Baba. Okay. Uh, okay. Yeah. Huh? This is a screen set.
The screen is visible.
Just a minute. I think, this is Ankisha's screen. Is it my screen? Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. So I think I was essentially kind of talking about urbanization challenge, and I thought I'll start with this very interesting quote from Habitat 2, which says, as we approach the new millennium, the world stands at a veritable crossroads in history. Urbanization holds out both the bright promise of an unequal future and the grave threat of an unparalleled disaster. On which it will be depends on what we do today. So he said, either it's a great promise or unmitigated disaster. And what it will be will depend on what we do today. Next. Ankisha? Hello? Ankisha? Hello. Okay. So that is, and I think basically, I think there's something that missed out. I must say that it essentially asks the question that if you really want to kind of manage your urbanization well, you've got to kind of, require a revolutionary kind of approach to urban problem solving. And the question that I'm asking is this, that is there revolutionary approach visible anywhere? And if you're not really kind of looking at the urban problem in the context of seeing completely out of way, seeing it out of box, we may not be able to go very far. So that's the kind of message. The second slide essentially talks about the vision of the city. And this particular vision is something that was put together. This was put together by a group of civil society actors about 15 years ago in a city called Konton in Malaysia. And I happen to be part of this. And this really talks about what kind of city are we talking about. You say cities which are economically productive, cities which are socially just, culturally vibrant, politically participatory, environmentally sustainable. This is something that was kind of worked out in Konton, and then subsequently we have worked on it and said, as time progressed, as cities grew more complex, ecologically sensitive, and seventh is technologically progressive and adaptive, and the last one is people-centric. So this is the kind of image of the city that we're talking about. Next. Next. Well, I think, that is the kind of image that one talks about. This is the reality of cities that we have in front of us. Next. Now, I essentially wanted to kind of come back to this particular slide because, no, can you go back? Can you go back? Hello? Hello, can you go back? Go back. Still go back. Hello? Can you go back? Oh, okay, next slide now. Next. This is finished. Next. Ankisha, can you manage this? Okay. This is the second slide. What is the first slide, Bombay? What's happening? Hello?
Yes, I'm there.
But where is the
Yes,
first
sir.
Bombay?
Hello. Yes, sir.
No, but where is the this full slide? slide is not coming through. I think the previous one. Hello? I'm sorry, just a minute. I don't know, there's some problem. Well, I think, let me, that whole slide, which has 3, Delhi, Bombay, and Varanasi. Can you put this full slide?
Yes, sir, it's there.
No, not this, no, next to this. The whole slide, it has 3.
So on mine, it's showing.
What is that?
Yes, sir, it is showing on screen. Your orange background, Mumbai, Delhi, and Varanasi. We can see that slide.
I'm not able to. Okay, in any case, I think so. What I was saying was this: that I essentially say that in the context I was talking about, I think India's urban challenges, there are 3 images that I'd like to kind of share, and this is the images of 3 capital cities of the country. One is that Delhi is the political capital of the city, and is such capital that it's one of the worst polluted city in the world. And as a matter of fact, at one point of time, the Delhi High Court said that it's a gas chamber. And the reason the word gas chamber was used was to really kind of tell people the real story in terms of what was the environmental condition about. Second, I think, which I don't think I see the image. Second capital, the wealth capital of India is Mumbai. And it's a glamour capital, wealth capital, and it's one city in the world where graph of people living in slum is taller than people living in ordinary houses. So something like 52% of people in Mumbai, in the wealth capital of the country, live in slum. And the third one is the spiritual and the religious capital of the country, which is Varanasi. Ganga, and Ganga Maya is so highly polluted that we require a special ministry, and we require thousands and thousands of dollars in order to clean this. So the question that one is asking is if this is what we've done to our 3 capitals, if this is what we've done to Delhi, political capital, if this is what we've done to Mumbai, our wealth capital, and if this is what we've done to, I think, our spiritual capital, how would we have developed and managed our small cities and towns? Next. 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 Hello? Next. Next. Well, I think, but the reason we are going to talk about this, I think I was personally very keen to kind of bring this particular slide because, we not only have questions of slums, we not only have the questions, of pollution, we also have large problems of inequality. And this particular slide very glaringly say, this is the Ambani house in Mumbai, costing $1 billion. And just about 600 meters from there, there's a festering slum. And Indian cities, there are a lot of characteristics. One glowing characteristic is the manner in which this huge amount of inequality gets reflected. Next. 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 Next.
So I have.
Well, I think, the other point that I was making was that because we're going to talk about, I think, the traffic, and we're going to talk about, I think, mobility, I thought this was an important slide to look at. This is the graph showing 50 cities, not only of India, of the world. And they say that there is hardly any cities, and none of the world's top 50 cities by population meet who WHO air quality standards. What we're saying is this, that all over the world, and of course much more in India, we have a huge problems of pollution and air pollution. Next. Next. Well, I just wanted to kind of say, because we're talking about traffic and going to talk about mobility, I thought this slide was very important. Just to kind of mention, this slide essentially says that this is on sustainability. This is on consumption. And our cities essentially are great receptacle of consumption. So it says how many earths we need if everyone lived like, if we live like Australian, we require 5.4 world in order to look after ourselves. And if you look like Americans, the viewer says 4.8, and just goes on saying, if you live like English, we require almost 3 worlds to look after ourselves. This is an example. And this is the story about, I think, consumption and sustainability. Next. 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 Well, I think another thing that I wanted to point out was this is the context of India. This is a city which finally didn't happen. This is the picture of Amaravati designed by Singapore. And there's a whole long story. I'm not going to go into this because I'm just giving you a glimpse. But what I'm saying is that one of the important part of our growing up, one of the important part of our managing urbanization and cities is our obsession with West, our obsession with Western cities and cities outside. And that has played a very important role in our psyche in terms of how we manage our cities. Next. Next. Well, I just wanted to kind of bring these two simple slides in order to kind of shape what is really happening, because this is an important kind of dimension of what is happening to our urbanization. If you look at this particular map, graph, India had just about 62 million people in the cities way back in 1950, when we become independent, just 62 million people in the cities. In 2011, we had 372 million people. And in 2051, we're estimated to be there 820 million people. So over a period of 100 years, from 62 million to 820 million is what is our population growth in urban areas. Now, this is staggering. And the question that, when we talk about 2050, you're talking about 30 years from now. And therefore, the question is, are we going to be equipped to handle this kind of growth in the next 30 years? And if you're not able to, what are the consequences? And the more positive question is that if we have to, because this is likely to happen, all the projections have really come correct, what kind of preparation we are going to have. Next. Next. Now, this is my last slide in this particular direction. And I think, I wanted to show this. This is a dramatic slide. It's slightly old, but it's very dramatic. What it's saying is this. This is doubling the growth of India's urbanization. What it says is this, that it took 43 years from a small base of 25 million to become 51 million. It took 43 years. Second doubling from 51 to 103 million happened in 26 years. Third doubling took only 20 years. And the fourth doubling with a very, very large base is just going to take 17 years. So basically saying in terms of the kind of population growth that is taking place and pressure it will have on resources, on services, on planning, on environment. And one of the reasons I'm talking about this is that in the context of mobility planning, in the context of parking and all that, we're going to talk a little later. This particular background should tell us in terms of what kind of cities, what kind of growth we are going to come across. Next. 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 Well, I think I also, this is the last slide most probably, but this is something very interesting slide, I think, and I wanted to kind of bring it to because we are Gujaratis, we understand money. This is this talks about the kind of investment that we require. There was estimation, I think, both McKinsey's and subsequently by Ahluwalia Committee, that we require investment of $640 billion in 20 years in terms of urban infrastructure needs, water, roads, sanitation, and power and all that. Now, what is interesting when you look at this figure of $640 billion over a period of 20 years, what is sobering is to really find out that under JNNURM, this country spent just $13 billion in 10 years' time, and that to huffing and puffing. The story is this, that if you're talking about need to spend $640 billion over a period of 20 years, and if we could manage just 13 billion in 10 years, how are we going to kind of jump this resource mobilization part? And more than resource mobilization part, the capacity building part is not only money. In order to kind of spend money, you require capacity. So capacity of the urban institutions, municipal corporations, and all that. Next. So this essentially sums up my very quick next graphical presentation of presenting to you. Next slide. Presenting to you in terms of what is happening. Now, I'm now moving to the second part. It's unfortunately not coming through. Okay. This you see this collage of. Can you go back? Can you go back?
Yes, sir. I did. The screen is visible.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I think what I'm trying to tell you is this. I think Vatsal Bhai pointed out that you organized 13 webinars this year. We took initiative, I think, during the COVID time, and are organizing 60 webinars on one subject. It's called Rethinking Indian Cities. We have planned 60, we have completed 48. And these webinars are on all kind of urban issues. It's on planning, on education, on infrastructure, on investment, on resources. And one of the reasons I'm showing this particular, I think what I wanted to tell was this, that we planned this particular series of 60 webinars with an understanding that we wanted to kind of take this urban challenge to people, to town hall. That people of this country, the planners of this country, I think citizens of this country, professionals of this country should not know what the urban challenge is all about. And in my understanding, this has happened on this scale, first time ever, where large number of people are participating. We had as many as 250 speakers, national and international, come and make presentation. Now, next. Okay, as a part of this, can you go back? As a part of this series of 48 webinars that we completed, can we go back? Yes, as a part of this webinar series, we did 4 webinars on urban transport, and this one is the first one, which was webinar number 18, and we had very distinguished people like O.P. Agarwal, Saab, I think, from the government. We had Shivanand Swami, I think, from the SAPT. We have Sujit Patwardhan and Sanskriti from Pune. As a matter of fact, in this 4 webinar, we were able to kind of put together something like 20-25 national and international experts on the subject. And I'm going to kind of use this slide in order to kind of very quickly show what are the key things that we looked at next. Now, in this particular webinar, which is 2-hour webinar, what we're saying is this, and this is something what the title of the webinar was, transform budget in order to transform transport. What he's saying is this: there most decisions-making authorities believe in the need to promote walking, cycling, and public transport. The investment in transport infrastructure indicates different trends. Instead, while one is talking about walking and cycling and public transport, the money is going in a different direction. What is it? The transport investment are heavily skewed towards building private motor vehicles infrastructure. That while we're talking about this, money is going in that direction. And therefore, this particular webinar was to look at investment approach so that the implementation authorities commit at least 50% of the transport budget toward sustainable mobility. And all those things essentially point to sustainable mobility. So the first webinar essentially looked at the whole aspect of investment in mobility, in transport, urban transport. Next.
So I would like to request you if you can maybe conclude in next 4-5 minutes.
Yeah,
Considering the time. Yeah.
Yeah, do that. Yeah. The second one essentially talks about where is my bus, and Rutul was the one who's anchoring this, and we had, and I must share a very sad news now. It also had people like Dinesh Mohan. Dr. Mohan died this morning. He used to teach at JNU. He was a kind of well-known guru on the subject. Next. 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 This particular one was talking, he said, well, and the title was, where is the bus? There's a need to improve the bus-based public transport in Indian cities. And he was talking about 50 buses per lakh population. And he said, we don't have even 5 buses per lakh population. So there's a whole skew in terms of what we have. And idea was this, that bus-based public transport, while discussing how to improve bus service in the country in general and in medium and small towns in particular, what this particular say that while there are a lot of forces operating on the big cities, the metro cities, we certainly could bring in buses in the context of small cities and medium cities. Next. Next. Well, this is the third one. This was on BRTS, and this was anchored by Abhijit Lokre. And what it said next, and what it said was this, that even though BRTS, I think, gave huge promises 50 years ago when JNNURM and National Urban Transport Policy were there, cities looked at BRTS as a viable option for mass and rapid transport system. And from period 2005, 2010, so many cities get funding through JNNURM, but that dramatically declined in post-2011. And he said enthusiasm began to wane. And I think all kind of problems that came up, which we probably, I think, going to handle subsequently. Next. I'll finish in 3 more minutes. Next. Next. Well, and this was the fourth one. The last talked about cities, people, and sustainable mobility. It's basically talk about the whole aspect of citizen participation, citizen education, if you really want your mobility system, your transport system to work. Next. 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 Well, I think I'm not going to talk about this at all, but I just wanted to mention this, and I'm going to take promise from Vatsal Bhai and Institute. In the last 2 years, we have done 2 major studies, my organization. One is Ahmedabad BRTS is making public transport work better. Story of BRTS Ahmedabad, listening to people. This is a 150-page report is ready, and we are waiting for good times to come. And this essentially analyzes and looks at BRTS Ahmedabad from bottom up, from the people's angle, in terms of what has happening, what required to be done in order to kind of improve performance of BRTS. Next, and second one, next. The second, similarly, at the same time, we started work on BRTS Pune. Next. And this report also is ready. We are going to be ready with these two reports. They're already ready. We're going to kind of approach people. I wanted to kind of mention this very quickly, and I think, because I wanted to bring down very special characteristic of Ahmedabad. Next. Next. Well, I think, the reason I wanted to show this, and this is how I come across and I saw it first time. If you look at this, is the logo of Ahmedabad city, and it talks about Udyog, Swashray, and Seva. Now, Udyog is industry and economy. Swashray is self-reliance, and Seva is service and servicing. Now, if you really look, this is a very unique part of Ahmedabad, because even though, and I think, this must be a very old logo, I think, Babi, I think, Sardar Patel time, you hardly come across municipal corporations talking about economy, because all the time cities are looked upon as places for people to live, and therefore municipal services regarding water, sewage, cleaning, roads, electricity, all that. This is one city which talked about Udyog in the context of economy. And now that the cities are seen as center of economic growth, I thought this was a very visionary statement on part of Ahmedabad city. And because we are talking about Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation's plan, it's very important to remember that this is a visionary statement and we have a lot to expect from municipality. Next. And I'll finish in one more minute. Next. Well, I think this, I'm going to kind of skip this, but I just wanted to tell this, that almost a 10-page paper that I've done on Ahmedabad's parking policy. These are the kind of aspects that I've covered. As I said, that in the way it's structured, Rutul Bhai and Dishaji is going to look after this. But if there is time and if there are gaps into the presentation, I'll come back and fill in some gaps, because very likely that area that I've highlighted, Rutul Bhai and Disha Ben might not doing that. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and look forward to listening to Rutul and others. Thanks. These are the 14 areas. As I said, I will come back to fill in gap if necessary. Next.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sorry for having to cut short for this, but we are running out of time. Yeah. So now I will request Ms. Disha to deliver her presentation. Disha. Disha, you need to unmute.
Good evening, everyone. I hope all of you and your family
Hello, Disha.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we are able to hear you.
I hope all of you and your family members are safe in this COVID situation. Thank you, GICA, for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Mr. President and Secretary of GICA for having me here to have such talk about for such crucial and interesting topic. So as rightly and elaboratively discussed about the various aspects of urbanization and parking policy across the country by Sri Kirti Shah sir, here I would like to take this interesting talk further, where I will compare and review the existing parking policy of few cities of India. I would like to begin my talk saying that make parking policies for cities. All cities will become a big parking, and this can be achieved through when policy is properly implemented and monitored in monitorized such that it actually achieves its objective to function cities in a well-coordinated manner. During the discussion, I will touch upon the elements of parking policies for various Indian cities. Next. So now, as the topic is related to parking and the challenges and opportunities in metro cities, I have analyzed type of cities based on population. So there are 9 cities which has more than 4 million of population. Saying Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Surat, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, and Kolkata. Next. Out of these 9 cities, I have considered this 4 cities, naming Surat, Bangalore, Pune, and Delhi, parking policy due to availability of information and nearness of their characteristics to Ahmedabad. So, before jumping directly to comparison of various parking policy here, I would like to show you and explain you the structure of any parking policy for Indian cities specifically. Next. As you can see in the slide, usually first 2 parts of the policies are basically the background and existing legal provisions, which mandate the policy, and these aspects are generic in nature. While the last section, which actually talks about what is the need of policy, what should be the objectives and directives to achieve these needs while preparing up the particular policy. So basically, this section is the core part of the policy, and today we will focus our discussion on this core part. Next. Now let's first understand the various objectives being followed by various cities to achieve their ultimate goal of parking policy. As all the cities and towns are unique in nature, and also the available resources changes from city to city, a toolkit is developed by ADB, which is Asian Development Bank, for MOUD, depicting objectives for the parking policies. So as you can see in the framework developed by the ADB, the very first common objective is that all the cities should focus on the discouragement of owning private vehicles, and it should aim to encourage more and more of public transport. While the second is to remove the informal parking or the obstacles from the carriageways for the ease of moving traffic. In the third objective, if you can see, it is to ensure the continuous vehicular flow or turnover, especially in the commercial areas. And in the fourth objective, it is to create adequate parking spaces for the certain social groups for the residents of the citizens. So you can see that the objectives are very contrasting in nature and is dependent on particular context, which will vary from city to city. Next. Now let's look upon the various objectives developed by the metro cities. So first, if we see about the Surat's objective, the Surat want to manage the demand through pricing and through promoting more and more of public transport, and want to manage the demand of private vehicles through various strategies. While if we see in the case of Bangalore, they have defined the objective bit more in detail, which comprises of having organized parking spaces, moving from free to paid parking, to promote market-driven demand and supply management for parking spaces, and to strengthen the enforcement and management of parking regulations. Next. So now coming to Pune, I feel like both the Bangalore and Surat objectives are more like subjective in nature. But if you see, Pune's all the objectives are quantifiable in meaning. If we see the objective in detail, the very first objective talks about achieving 80% of motorized trips by public transport by the year 2031. and that is directly quantifiable in their aim to promote and to shift the public from private to public transport. The second objective, if we see, that talks about a reduction of 50% in total vehicle kilometers traveled by the year 2031. And the last objective is very interesting. It talks about the recreating street parking spaces by transforming at least 10% of the street parking spaces to public open spaces or NMT infrastructure. Next. So this slide is provides a matrix for comparison of various policy objectives exported by UTD Toolkit, Surat, Pune, Bangalore, and Delhi parking policy. In case of Delhi's parking policy, it was directly focusing on directives. Hence, policy objectives were not available for the review. So most common objectives here are talked about are reduce private vehicle usages. Second is supplying adequate parking spaces. Third is promoting public transport. While various other objectives which can be seen in matrix are remove or minimize obstacles, facilitating continuous vehicular flow in commercial area, demand pricing for parking, recreating street parking spaces, moving to paid parking, and market-driven demand and supply management. Next. So moving forward now to policy directives. All the cities have adopted whole lot different sets of directives to achieve various objectives of parking policy. Next. So in order to understand those objectives in easy way, I have classified them in three major categories. The directives which helps to achieve objectives through formulating policies and framework or making bylaws or strengthening existing regulatory structure. I have categorized them into the policy, legal, and planning directives. Then directives which are focusing on measures like developing implementation cells, giving roles and responsibility to some authority can be identified under the administrative directives, while those directives which are well formulated and such actions can be directly implemented with limited use of any legislative or administrative actions are categorized under the direct action directive. Next. So there are about 5 different types of directives could be found under our very first directive of policy, planning, and legal directive. Under that, first is parking bylaws. So you must be thinking that it is not being mentioned in any of the city, but parallelly I was looking at the draft policy of Ahmedabad city, and there is a mention of this directive in Ahmedabad's policy. So what does exactly it means? Basically, parking bylaws are specifically formulated control regulation for parking, just like we have developed the GDCR to control and regulate overall development of the city. Then comes the area level parking plan. So this directive is to develop the area level parking plans for different zones of cities, meaning each zone will have a unique independent parking plan. From the above matrix, if you see in the slide, you can see that this directive measures are being considered in Pune, Bangalore, and Delhi. Third one is talking about the proof of parking, meaning that should be the proof regarding availability of parking prior to purchase of vehicles. This directive being seen in Surat and Delhi. Fourth one we talk about is freight management plan. In that, Surat is the only city which is focusing upon formulation of specific plan for movement and parking for commercial vehicles in the city, as Surat is the city of textile business and diamond city business. So they have implemented such directive specifically. Then last one in the category is the parking norm reconsideration. This directive is aimed to revisit the prepare suitable amendment norms relating to parking spaces. This can be witnessed in Surat and Bangalore. Next. So in the administrative directives, as you all can see, that all the cities have enforcement as a directive in their policy. And in Pune and Delhi policy, there is a mention of establishment of implementation cells for proper and regulated enforcement in terms of parking. Bangalore has also mentioned that the suitable framework for managing on-street and off-street parking spaces across the city. And the last directive under this category is parking revenue management. I think this is interesting aspect dealing with use of revenue, which will be collected as a parking fees. So in Pune, Delhi and Bangalore policy, this directive can be seen, and this directive emphasizes on how they will utilize the collected revenue for upgrading parking and NMT infrastructure. Next. Now talking about the direct actions. In this direct action directive, as you can clearly see that there are more than 10 direct directives given by the cities. From all of them, we know few directives. So here I will discuss only few directives which might be unique or important while developing parking policy for other cities of India. The most common directives and most talked directives which can be seen in almost all the cities are on-street parking and parking pricing. While the third one is parking permits. The parking permit directive is only seen in the Surat city. This is basically issuing permits for particular time duration to park a vehicle at a designated location. Then park and ride. This directive aims to increase the usage of public transport by facilitating adequate parking spaces at the public transport nodes. It also talks about the integration of NMT with public transport system. And the application of this directive can be seen in Surat and Bangalore. Technology adaptation is one of the directives for advanced parking management and has been integrated in Pune and Bangalore policy. Again, promotion of public transport has been talked by all the cities. Then parking sharing. I think this directive can be count as a unique directive. This concept aims to share and utilize the urban spaces or unused spaces, parking spaces for the purpose for future parking spaces. This directive can be found in policy of Surat and other cities of Gujarat as well. Next. Then other directives are like regulation, ITP, and transport vehicles, off-street and multi-level parking could be found in almost all the cities of India. There is one critical directive, which is residential on-street parking, that is only mentioned in the city of Bangalore. This directive
Oh, Disha, we cannot hear you. Hello.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was talking about the residential on-street parking directive, which is implemented by the Bangalore city. So this directive is to resolve the issue to face the parking problems in already developed part of the old city, because in earlier time parking spaces availability was not given due importance. But I think this is the common issue which almost all the cities of India may be facing, and this directive should be considered to resolve the issue in developed areas of cities. Then if we can see from the table, only Delhi has initiated the parking directives for differently abled persons and have integrated it with parking guidelines. Again, Delhi seems to be the only city which has started initiating the charging facilities for e-vehicles. This is very crucial aspect which needs focus from basis from government's aim of gaining significant pie for e-mobility by 2025 and 2030. Hence, parking infrastructure, all fronts, that is on-street, off-street, and multi-level, should given due importance to this aspect. Providing charging facilities have already been part of many DCRs, but incorporating them in the parking policy is need of the hour to promote increase in e-mobility. Directives of junk vehicles which have certain age is proposed in policy of Delhi. So these were the major directives adopted by the city to achieve their ultimate goals. Next. Now I would like to conclude my talk with few points which I expected from after comparing and analyzing various parking policy of Indian cities. Next. So during my analysis, I found that there is a lack in objectives identified by various cities. They seem more generic in nature, but I personally think that they can be more focused dealing with each city's specific issue. Secondly, while we were discussing the objective part, I mentioned that the more quantifiable the objective, the more efficiently it can be monitored, as in case of Pune. Hence, objectives should be less subjective in nature. After that, I found out that there is a lack of interlinkages between objectives and directives almost in all the cities except Bangalore. If you can see in the table, Bangalore is the only city which has like each objectives with specific identified directives so as to achieve specific objectives. While reviewing various policies, it was found in certain cities that few objectives had no directives and few directives were without any objective. So this can be the conclusion part. So next, now coming for some food for thought. So while going through all the policies and other documents relating to parking control and management, few points have come up in my mind, which I would like to share here as a food for thought. First one is, we should understand that India is currently having 22 cars per 1,000 individuals, and according to International Energy Agency, the ownership is likely to grow by 775% over the next 2 decades. So that will be 175 cars per 1,000 people in 2040. So what I mean to say is, people belonging to higher middle class or higher class used to own a car. But there is a significant shift from lower middle class to middle class population who would be the owner of the cars tomorrow. So we might be having multiple cars at home, but we should remember that a large population purchasing cars tomorrow will be the first owner. So in my personal view, restricting car ownership may lead to socio-economic disparity and create sense of discontent among such population. Second point, which I would like to highlight and which I realized from analysis, is a multiple traffic policies. That is the many of this policy directly or indirectly try to curb the increase in private vehicle ownership. So at this moment, it is very imperative to understand that parking policy can be one of the small tools which can be used to address this issue. But we should understand that increasing private vehicles is majorly due to availability of ease of finance and lower interest rates. So on the one hand, ease of finance is facilitating ownership of private vehicles. And on the other hand, we are trying to restrict such growth through local sanctions and which are grossly contradictory in nature. So So I think this issue is not only requires the actions from the local government, but stronger actions are also required at national level, which can be suitably modified or supplemented with local requirements. And I think, lastly, the critical issue, according to me, in future will be shared mobility. As shared mobility is a pleasing concept for everyone, but it has a whole lot different parking issues. A person owning Uber or Ola usually reside in a small dwelling unit size, and sometimes the car is becoming a bigger size rather than their houses. So there should be clear-cut directive to address such parking requirements while they are within controllable atmosphere. So this issue can be monitored and can need some attention in the perspective of while making the parking policy. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you, Disha, for such a wonderful address, and that too being exactly in 20 minutes. So thank you very much. And now I will request Dr. Rutul to deliver his address.
Yeah, thank you, Yash. Thank you, Vatsalbhai. Thank you, GICA, for allowing me to inviting me to be part of this August gathering. I understand my responsibility as the last speaker, so I will keep within 20 minutes and probably less. I'll also talk to the point. I don't want to talk too many things, but I think Kirtibai's talk and Disha's talk has laid down a perfect setting for me to talk about how do we think about parking policy in Ahmedabad point by point. And I would also like you to consider that let's look at and understand the basic economics of how parking works. Okay. And that's what my focus is going to be today. I'm not going to go around into any larger issue. Let's just look at these 4 points very, very carefully. One is, what is parking? If you really ask me, parking is real estate. I'll explain you later in detail what I mean by that. Then let's look at the demand. What is the demand that we are dealing with? Because before making any policy, we have to understand that what is the size of the animal that we are dealing with here. What are the supply side regulation and what have we achieved through them in last few decades? We'll understand that. And then based on that, what is the best way to regulate parking in Ahmedabad? So this is how I've sort of structured my talk. The first thing first, we have to understand in parking that parking requires space. And space in a city means real estate. Okay. Now, when we say that space in a city means real estate, most of the time, most of the real estate, when it is in private realm, that real estate is paid for. Public real estate is not always charged. Sometimes it is charged, sometimes it is not charged. Sometimes it is given as a service, sometimes it is not given as a service. Okay. Sometimes it is simply said that, well, if you want to avail certain services, you have to, if you want to access certain services, you'll have to pay for it. Okay. That is how real estate works. Many of you are professionals who know real estate better than me. So I don't need to explain you that real estate means location, location, location. We think about parking as a flat thing, as if parking on CG Road and parking in front of my house and parking inside Gujarat Vidyapeeth are all same. They are not, because location, location, location. Real estate means location, and the price of parking changes whether you're paying for it or not. It changes from location to location. Okay. So the problem that we have is, moment we have a mobility, our cars, our vehicles only travel 10% of the time, 19% of the time they are stationary and they're parked, and we need to store them somewhere. That is what the problem is. There are two kinds of parking. Generally, on-street parking and off-street parking, we again mix both of them together. We think that they are same. And I'll explain you why they are not the same just in a few minutes. But I really would like you to again think about what I'm saying, that do we think that parking means real estate or it means something else in our head? Is it a public good? Is it something that compulsorily government should provide to us whenever we ask for it, right? Is it something that just because I bought a vehicle, it is government's responsibility to create a space for me in the city? I think that clarity is something that all citizens should have. That when I buy a vehicle, I don't even want to go into the debate of whether or not we have good public transport and whether or not we want people to shift to public transport. Forget that. There is a fact that you bought a vehicle. What are your expectations from the government? Okay. And I think that is something that we have to clarify when we start talking about parking in a city. One more thing. I would like to argue that I would think that parking is all about real estate. Right now in India, if you want to park a Fortuner, probably you would require 20 square meter of space, with circulation and everything. EWS housing, our government of India standard says 25 square meter. And you know how precious it is in a city to create a legal building, legal floor space. Okay, in any society, it's very precious. Not everybody has access to that legal floor space. When we create it, how much do we want to spend on creating that space for storing of vehicles rather than storing of human beings? That is a question that we need to ask at some point in time. These are all very fundamental conceptual questions. Even if we don't ask them, we should ask them. But if we don't, doesn't matter. Let's look at the basic economics of parking and how it works. So demand side issues in Ahmedabad or anywhere specifically is that if you look at the number of vehicles, the way in which they are growing, I don't know if you had time to look at some of this data, so I would like to highlight that. In 2011, Ahmedabad had 15 lakh two-wheelers. Okay, I'm going to simplify some of these numbers. Now Ahmedabad has 30 lakh two-wheelers. In 2011, Ahmedabad had 2.5 lakh cars. Today, Ahmedabad has 10 lakh cars. Okay, today we have 4 million vehicles, 3 million 30 lakh two-wheelers, 1 million 10 lakh cars. We are talking about storing that many amount of vehicles today in Ahmedabad. When we say parking policy for Ahmedabad, whether it is on roads or building, we are talking about 4 million vehicles. And as what Disha was talking about, as per that calculation, in next 20 years, you can imagine that 4 million is going to become 8 million. And we have to start preparing for it from today. Okay, so that's our responsibility when we talk about the parking policy in Ahmedabad. If you look at the number per 1,000 population, only cars, in 2011, number of cars per 1,000 population in Ahmedabad were 36. Okay, now it has become 142. That is the kind of jump per 1,000 population we have seen. Okay. Now I made a very quick calculation, back of the envelope calculation. I mean, all of us are professional. We sort of love this kind of calculation. I said that, okay, those 4 million vehicles, based on simple assumption of how much storage space you required, you required about 26 million square meters in Ahmedabad today to store those vehicles. Okay. If you make another calculation that all the vehicles in Ahmedabad today, rather than being parked in building, they just come out and stand on a public space, on public roads, it will take away 1/3 of our road space, even if they are not moving. Okay. That is what is the size of the problem we have. So what happens in case of parking is that it's not only about storing these vehicles, right? It is much more dynamic than that. So that number is going to increase. I'm not going to overplay that. What happens is when you buy a car, you definitely require 2 parking spaces, one at your place, at your home, one in the office. So you are blocking two spaces by buying a car or a two-wheeler, whatever it is. Whether that parking is paid for, not paid for, legal, illegal, doesn't matter. It's all going in the city, right? So you are going to park somewhere at home and somewhere in the office. So you are creating these 2 kind of spaces for sure. When you go out for any other purpose like shopping, etc., that demand also reflects back in the city and its infrastructure and its public spaces and its private building spaces, right? So to be safe, one vehicle creates two parking space demand in the city for sure. Third demand is a bit more dynamic. And we are not only then talking about 26 million square meter of space. We are talking about a demand which is much more dynamic than that. If somebody goes to 4 places while going for shopping, they create even more demand. Okay, so that's how it works. Now, if we sit back and reflect upon our GDCR based on this, we also need to ask a question, where do we want to stop? How much parking do you think a building should provide? And it would still be feasible to make a building out of it. You know, all of you would understand, again, the business better than me. So, you know, when would a building become feasible? At 40% parking space, 50%, 60%? Would we have buildings where it will have more space for parking rather than for the use? We need to think about it, because see, what happens is, it's a very simple fact. When CEPT hires a professor, CEPT would give us a 10 square meter of office space. But if I bring a car to CEPT, CEPT will have to give me 20 square meter of parking space on ground floor somewhere, right? Because we are an education campus. If we have been in multi-story building, they would have to give me a 20 square meter of car space somewhere in the building. So every employee, when they drive to work, they create this kind of demand. What is it going to be implication on buildings? Okay, are we going to make buildings which will have more parking space than car space? And that's why what happens is, every time there is a parking chaos in the city, there is a pressure on the town planners, municipal corporation, that we please increase your parking requirement in the buildings. And I think somewhere we need to stop and say that, where are we going to stop raising that space? Okay, and how much of it can be outside FSI? It's a controversial topic, but we need to think about it, that how long can we go on like this, raising the parking requirement in individual buildings? Okay, so this is just to conclude this part, that demand is relentless, it's endless, it's going to increase, and every vehicle creates number of demands in the city. Okay, now let's look at what we have been doing on the supply side. What we have been doing on the supply side is, we think that we can solve the supply issue, because there is always going to be a very high demand to park your vehicles on the roads. And we think that by creating space in buildings, we will be able to solve that problem. Okay, and here I would like you to think about that. Think of these two things as product one and product two. Parking on a road is a product one. Parking inside the building is product two. To manage the demand of product one, we are increasing the supply of product two. Okay, and we think that we'll be able to manage it like that. Okay, now only way in which the product one and product two will work is that, if I have to park on the road, if it is more expensive than parking inside the building, that is the only way in which, because of the price war between product one and product two will become feasible. But what we do is, we have an ample, more or less ample supply of product one. And there is tremendous pressure on product two to keep on increasing the supply. Okay, and that's why we find that in many places, buildings, whether they are built out of public money or private money, are empty. The parking inside is empty, and parking outside is chaotic. Okay, and I think we have to make this link anywhere. I will give you a quick example of Ahmedabad. We have spent 52 crores for Navarangpura multi-story parking lot, 36 crore in Kankaria, which is not functional now. If you park outside Navarangpura parking lot, there is, the multi-story parking building, it's amply available parking, free of cost, right? એટલે ગુજરાતીમાં કહીએ તો, જો તમને રસ્તા પર મફતમાં જોઈએ એટલા પેંડા મળતા હોય, તો પછી બિલ્ડિંગમાં જઈને મોંઘા પેંડા કોણ ખરીદે? It is as simple economics as that. Okay, and I think we have failed to really understand this interrelationship between off-street and on-street parking. And that's why we find that very expensive, very nicely built parking remains empty. So in India, our problem is not now that we build infrastructure, we build infrastructure really well. What we don't do is we understand the economics behind building the infrastructure. And I think that is what I'm arguing for, that we have to look at some of this thing carefully. Only way in which a multi-story parking lot parking will become feasible is when it is going to be cheaper, or sometimes even at free of cost compared to what is available out there on the street. Okay, and same thing happens in CG Road. There is a lot of demand for parking. If you park outside on the road at the CG Road, which is a paid parking, which is a good idea, exactly at the same price as the price you pay in Navrangpura multi-story parking lot. Okay. Another thing is when we look at the floor area ratio inside the building across different cities, now we are already at 50%, 60%. If you look at Delhi, you have to give 90% of floor space, which is free of FSI, to create parking in the retail buildings, in commercial retail buildings. Okay, we have already gone till that level, which means 90% of your floor space is going to be parking alone. Point is, where are we going to stop, right? Are we going to create cities like American cities, which is more parking than people, more cars than people? I mean, that's a question that we really need to ask. So if you really want to take parking as real estate, what kind of policy will we make, right? So, I mean, just to sort of remind everyone that parking is really our right. When you buy a vehicle, is it government's responsibility to put it where it is? So like if you buy an AC, it's not government's responsibility to place it wherever, right? Government should not take many of this kind of responsibilities at all. It can only provide you services when required. And sometimes when there is high demand, you charge for the services. Okay. So a magical thing happens with pricing is that, you know, there are so many such examples from around the world that when you start charging for parking on certain roads, over a period of time, vehicles disappear. Okay, because people start making different choices. People start parking sometimes inside the buildings because that's more, that makes a lot of sense. So there is this international parking guru called Donald Shoup. He talks about a very interesting on-street, on-demand model of pricing parking. What he says is that, you know, when you have 10 spots of parking available to you, what is the right price of that spot of parking? Because again, real estate is location. How do you price a location? The right price to park at that place is when there are 2 or 3 parking spots are empty at any given point in time, even in the middle of the peak hour. Even if it means that it is 100 rupees per hour parking cost. I'm not saying that, don't worry, I'm not saying that we bring that model as it is in India. I'm just trying to explain that how this works. What is a demand-based parking pricing model is saying that wherever you have 2 or 3 parking spaces are left out of 10 spots, that is a good price. If there are more spaces empty in that space on that location, which means the parking charge is too high for that location. When it is completely full, then it is too low. So based on that, in San Francisco, they create a sort of a district level, area level plan like this of parking, where they ensure that whoever wants to consume parking. So if you want to go and park in front of municipal market on CG Road, you will be, and you are happy to pay 50 rupees per hour, you should be getting a parking spot there. Okay, but in side lane, if you want to go and park, you might only be charged 10 rupees. Okay, that is how this particular model works. It can't work on a road. It has to work on an area level sort of space, because everything is open for charging in an area, not only few lanes. And actually you get an information on the app. So if I'm going to CG Road for shopping, I get an app that, okay, if I go and park in this lane, right now the price is this. If I go and park in that lane, the price is this much. Okay, that is how it really works. We should think about it. In Ahmedabad, I would say that we may not start with a model like this to begin with. We start with a simple model of charging for parking on certain streets, and change it every few months. It doesn't have to be static for years and years to come. The other part of this is what are the implications inside the buildings. Inside the building, if there is a developer who wants to charge for parking, they should be allowed to charge for that parking, because that person is creating a facility and floor space. Okay, so in that sense, there has been a recent High Court judgment which is not very progressive here, that they will say that just because parking is outside FSI, you can't charge. In my view, it's a very regressive economic decision. But I think this is something that we have to consider. So on street, you sort of start charging for parking based on the demand, based on the location. Off street, you might want to give option to the businesses that, well, give complimentary parking tickets to whoever comes for shopping in your building. And the next thing is, which we don't consider in India, is allow people to make a multi-story parking lot if they think that there is going to be a business opportunity here. And that is only possible when municipal corporation decides that we are going to charge for parking on street in the high demand areas. We might not need to do it everywhere, but wherever there is high demand, we are going to start charging for parking. Okay. And I think that is a starting point. So Ahmedabad's draft policy, I think that I'll just finish in a minute on this, is that it is comprehensive, which is a good thing. But I think our policies, we should write them keeping practical actions in mind. It needs to be integrated with the development plan and its sort of projections, etc. The question on who will implement the policy needs to be strengthened. We have a tremendous problem with coordination with traffic police. Traffic police simply doesn't have enough number of people. Okay, we have only 14 traffic police stations in Ahmedabad. You can make a simple calculation how many traffic polices are available for 3,000 junctions in Ahmedabad. Okay, so it's a huge staffing problem. There is also other structural problem with the way in which the policing system work. So we need to sort of settle that. It's not only a problem of municipal corporation. They'll have to rope in traffic police for coordination on day-to-day basis. I belong to Faculty of Planning in SAPT University, and I'm saying this with great responsibility and jawabdari. Okay, every time we want to make a policy, we don't have to start by saying कि चलो आप एक नया plan बनाइए. Sometimes we have to take simple, straightforward, practical decisions and say કે ચલો આ રસ્તા પર આ કરવાનું ચાલુ કરીએ. એક વર્ષ પછી પ્લાન બનાવશે ત્યારે આપણે આને ઇન્કોર્પોરેટ કરી લઈશું. So we don't have to start by saying કે અમે 2 વર્ષ પછી freight management plan બનાવીશું ત્યારે તમે આની વાત કરજો. I think we have to start with certain action points rather than saying that only thing that the policy will do is to make 3 kind of plans. And then if you make area level plan of whole of Ahmedabad, when will this end? Because the problem is growing every day, right? And then there are couple of contentious issues. One is proof of parking, although I would wholeheartedly agree with the intention. અમદાવાદમાં અત્યારે proof of parking કરવા માટે we don't have wherewithal. We don't have that kind of database to say that, you know, how will you ensure that everybody is giving you the right information? It should not just become an added thing that you get it passed from the municipal corporation. I think we have to think about this very through. Charge of parking, I said that we should slowly start going towards that model of charging it parking everywhere. Okay. And finally, every public policy should come with an expiry date and timeline. Draft parking policy of Ahmedabad can't say that I'm here forever. So 3 years down the line, we review the policy, and if the need be, we change it, right? So this is what I would conclude by saying. Thank you very much. Thank you, GICA, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Rutul, for your valuable insights. So now we have got some questions, and maybe there are 2 questions which I can direct to Kirti sir. So the first question is that parking is doubly beneficial. It reduces congestion and raises the finance, and it doesn't consume much. London generates parking revenue per year to the extent of about 450 million pounds. So what's your take on this? And also second question is a bit of an add-on onto this, that volume in metro projects in few cities like Nagpur, Jaipur and Lucknow and Cochin are even much less than what BRTS can achieve. So do you see that there is any sort of mismanagement in overall planning context? considering both these aspects?
I would rather have Rutul answer this question because he has dealt with this, and I'll come back. Let Rutul answer this question. Rutul?
Yeah. So I think very quickly, that point about London, what happens is in London, they make a lot of money because they monopolize parking in central London. So if you want to park in London for 1 hour, I mean, you can go to London, ask your relative, chalo apne car lena central London jaiye. They will say that, parking in central London for 1 hour is 8 to 9 pounds for an hour. If you go for shopping for 2-3 hours, you'll come back with a bill of 30 pounds. Nobody can afford it. Whereas you can go in public transport and come back with family with that kind of money from the suburb. So point is that over a period of time, gradually they have put in place that system. We won't be able to bring it overnight. Okay, I think what we have to start with is at least get Ahmedabadis to start to pay for parking in high demand areas, at least on street. Okay, that is number one. Number two, allow private businesses to start charging for parking wherever they find appropriate. I mean, they are doing it, but some of this government, the High Court order, etc., pretty detrimental to that. So I would say that at least let's start bringing in that culture of paying for parking whenever you're using space, and then we can gradually move to other things.
Yeah.
Well, I think can I come and join? I think
Yes, sir.
just a small point, and that is in the context of not London so much, but the wall city, just a minute. The heritage city. Now, one of the problems the heritage city is this, that even though it's heritage, it's very difficult to access, especially the poles and all that. And if you go to Penang, after Penang become heritage city, there's been mushrooming of boutique hotels, mushrooming of the restaurants which provide local food. And structurally, I think Penang is slightly different than I think what we have in Wall City in Ahmedabad. But what would appear is this, that if we really wanted to kind of benefit in terms of economic, in terms of really taking I think heritage to people who come to visit, you require some kind of intervention. And considering the kind of place the wall city is, it appears that creating parking spaces is probably one good option. But the interesting part of the story is, how do you do that? How do you create parking spaces in walled city? You can't necessarily build multi-story towers there. So one possible option, and this is once again something that's been tried out in Mexico, is this, that you use dilapidation as an opportunity. That when a building collapses, you do not allow it to be rebuilt. And then, of course, your transfer FSI policy and all that you could think about. And you also actively kind of encourage people when the buildings really go old, allow them to kind of dismantle. And over a period of time, and I think one could probably draw a 10-year perspective depending on if you are able to create those kind of open spaces. And Ahmedabad's problem is not only, I think, parking. Ahmedabad walled city's problem also is an open spaces of some kind, introduction of green areas. So what I was thinking was this, that while we are talking about London and other places, is it possible to examine how could we utilize this opportunity, economic opportunity that is arisen, and use parking as a possibility to get economic benefits and to really kind of see that the heritage place becomes much more livable environmentally, pollution-wise, and all that.
Yeah. Okay, so Disha, there is one question I would like to direct to you. You talked about a socio-economic disparity also in your presentation. So we have one question on the same lines, that in Indian society, to own a private vehicle is considered as a social and economical status of the vehicle owner, even making sometimes for marital decision. So how to change the social status consideration and bring the thinking of the society to shift to public transportation?
I think this question is very crucial and need attention at later stage maybe. But I think the answer I would like to give here is, I think since we are kids, it has been set in our mind that cars and our own vehicles are the only luxury. કે આની પાસે આ કાર છે તો આપણે આ કાર લેવાની. That is the only, dynamics of being luxurious. So I think to resolve this issue or to overcome from this issue, I think by mandating in the schools and colleges kids to travel to their institution in the public transport. So this is how we can change the mentalities gradually. And I guess we can also include this in the education itself, that during our studies there should be some lessons on how public transport is important to our society and to our country to save from global warming effects and how it can be effective for environmental issues. So this, as of now, I have just this answer for this question.
Yeah, thank you. And last two questions to Dr. Rutul. So first one is that how will Uber and Ola, that is shared mobility, in future affect the requirement of parking spaces? Because I think Disha also touched upon that to some extent, that it will need a whole different set of requirements. So maybe we would like to have your views on the same, along with a follow-up question that why have you not considered size of cars? As for example, a hatchback pays less parking fees and SUV charge should be more likewise, and also tax-wise to encourage smaller vehicles. So is it required that smaller vehicles to be encouraged, and what's your take on e-vehicles also?
So, I mean, I would completely agree that different size of vehicles can pay different charges. That's not an issue. I mean, if you come on two-wheeler, you will pay lesser than that. And if you come on cycle, probably that should be free of cost. So, and I think people take a lot of practical decision in their life. When we go to walled city, most people will take a two-wheeler and go because there is simply no space, right? So I think that is, people are already adjusting, changing their travel behavior depending upon the location they are going. And there is something valuable there to learn from. And we say that, okay, in certain places, probably you need to have this kind of differential pricing to encourage people to start paying for parking. I mean, I have no problem with that, right? But point is that we need a practical solution to many of this problem. Very simple economic principle is, wherever you have high demand, the pricing should try and address that issue. Okay, I don't think that this is an issue of citizenship and civic sense, etc. I think I see this as a pure economic issue. In my classroom, I can argue with my students that how important is public transport and how we can everybody should use public transport. But right now, when we are making a policy for the city, I have to wear a different hat and say that, well, it's not my job to comment on people's social attitudes. My job is to put in place a system which works for the benefit of the city. And I think we have to, in our society generally, we have to take economics seriously when we are making public policy. Okay, that is my point. The other point about Uber and all, I completely agree that those kind of vehicles, any shared mobility solutions as they are called, would reduce the demand for parking. But also please consider that when those vehicles are not being used, where are they going to be parked? Okay, right now we know that many of them stand in a space outside airports and lot of those places. We also have a huge problem of parking of freight vehicles. We also have, I mean, the vehicles which don't belong to anybody, parking of large luxury buses in the daytime when they are not moving. those issues also have to be settled. And I mean, if those people are given a deal that, okay, if you have 20 luxury buses which needs to be parked in Ahmedabad, we give you a deal that, you know, you can park it at concessionary rate, but at least start paying AMC. So the whole point is that we have to sort of turn this into a model where people are conscious, because the only way in which parking will be managed is, see, somebody should have an incentive. The reason I'm stressing on parking on street is that parking contractor has an incentive, you know, to make sure that you park properly, right? So that, who has that responsibility right now? Nobody, right? And I will park in a most convenient way because that is how my mind thinks. But tomorrow we are creating a cadre of people who are interested in to make sure that we park more efficiently. That is what pricing is doing here, and we should take an advantage of that.
Yeah. So thank you all the three distinguished speakers. And now before I hand over to Apurva Thakurshi for vote of thanks, I would like Mr. Vatsal Patel to say a few words regarding today's presentation and upcoming events.
Few announcement, particularly for next week, on next Friday and Saturday, we have two webinar. On Friday, it will be from Social Security Scheme, and Dr. Darshna Thakur will be the speaker. And on Saturday, one another webinar, technical webinar on water supply system, pure practice good for when wanted. Webinar will be organized with cooperation of Indian Plumbing Association Gujarat chapter. So with association of this Indian Public Association Gujarat chapter, next Saturday we are going to meet again in technical session, and on Friday same 8:30 with Social Security Scheme with Dr. Darshna Thakur. So I again request you all who is interested for the health related issues, and the young engineers particularly should at least attend the next Saturday's webinar. Thank you very much. Over to Apurva Thakurji for vote of thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Vatsal bhai. Very nice presentation. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Shri Kirtibhai Shah, Dr. Rutul Joshi, and Desha Pujara Majitia for sharing their views and knowledge on today's subject of parking. I also thank Yash for arranging and conducting this webinar successfully, this year's first webinar. Special thanks to PC Snell Group for allowing us their Zoom account. We are very much thankful to all participants for attending first webinar organized under leadership of Vatsal bhai and Team GICA. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks a lot. Yash?
Yeah.
Good night.
So yeah. Thank you, everyone. We declare this session to be concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Few minutes for socializing. Yes, next time initial 15 minutes should be for socializing and last 15 minutes for socializing.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Because due to COVID, lots of people we are seeing first time within 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
And after seeing the people, we really feel very excited. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.